was the only guy back. So he ran with them. And the reason that's important, because now here comes the big fella. He's lumbering up here at half court, and that means right off the bat, you're going to have a smaller guy on him. Jimmy Butler's going to pick him up, and that tells Jokic right off the bat, okay, I'm going to go right down to the post end against a smaller player. Now, when he catches the ball, Scott, most of the time when a post player catches the basketball and he sees a guy in the strong side corner basically sitting in his lap, and he sees the guy guarding him is on baseline leverage, he clearly is going to want to spin to the middle. That's what any post player is going to want to do when they feel that kind of coverage in their lap. But watch what happens. As he's trying to figure out what's going on, take a look at this. He drops his top foot into the paint because he wanted to spin this way. But that's exactly the time when Highsmith came running from the weak side of the floor to crowd this area. So what does he do? Let me just pivot away from it. And just that quickly, he makes that decision to now put both defenders on the high side, which gives him a clear vision to the weak side.
Tim's going to give you all sorts of work on this, and you see that Jokic teammates were 10 of 12 off his passes in the first half, and he had 10 assists. This is where they just absolutely hurt you. Pick and roll, a million different options. Jokic is the second player with the last quarter century with a double-double in the first half. The other, Tim Duncan. Third quarter, okay, you know what it is. Now, is he going to give it back to Jokic? No, he'll hit a floater, and it's a 16-point game. But then the next time, all right, same action, except this time it's Jokic, and bang! 1-2 punch, and those punches are landing. They built a 20-something point lead. The Heat did continue swinging, which is what they do. An 11-0 run started the fourth, but then Jokic, some turnarounds as those two combined for 53 and 24. And the Nuggets do win at home against Miami to start a playoff series. Jokic scored or assisted on 58 in game one, according to Elias. That's the third most by any player in a finals debut. The only two who did a little better, Allen Iverson in 2001, Michael Jordan back in 1991, which was a really long time ago, but it might not seem that way sometimes. Right. Kids, you get old, and you're like, what happened? Tim Legler back with us.
Number probably is going to be 110, and I just think that's going to be the case pretty much every night in this series, because they can just break you down so simply by giving the ball to one player and letting him figure it out. Right. And if you want to play him straight up, he'll shoot over Bam all night long. If you want to play him and send some traffic his way, he will make the right decision and empower the rest of his team.
But obviously, Miami didn't get to this place by wilting after one game, although, as we have now pointed out many, many times, they did go on the road and win game one and all these other series, which set them up pretty well. Caleb Martin, after the loss, already looking ahead towards Sunday night.
I'm sure if we could tip up in 20 minutes again, we would right now. You know what I mean? That's how bad that we probably want that game back. But, you know, at this point, it is what it is. You learn from it. And that's the beauty of the playoffs, is first to four, not first to one. So.
Any positive takeaways from a game like this?
Yeah. Second half was played more like ourselves, made better plays, played better defense, got more stops, made more shots. We look more like ourselves the second half, so there's always something positive you can take away from the game, and there's stuff that you learn from it too. So.
It looked like the zone was starting to work,
right,
especially early in the fourth.
Exactly, that's another good takeaway too. We'll figure things out. That's what you.
Talking after a playoff game that involves Denver. Thankfully, we're long out of that, and now we're in a finals, and we are talking about Jamal Murray, who's once again healthy, once again starring on a giant stage. You just spoke to him moments ago. What stood out to you about the conversation you had?
Oh, obviously on the court, right? It's the 26 points. It's scoring at all three levels, three-point, mid-range, in the paint. So it really feels like when he's playing like that, there's not much of an answer for Jamal Murray, and the Heat certainly figured that out tonight. But then, Scott, when I walked into the locker room after the game, Jamal was sitting in his locker. He was getting his knees iced up, and I looked over to the left-hand side of his locker, and he had a quote that was taped up on the wall, and it said, "Knowing is not enough. We must apply. Willing is not enough. We must do." It's Bruce Lee. And so I asked him, when did you put that up? He said, I actually put that up when I first got to Denver. But he admitted that it's taken on new meaning for him since he's gone through injury, as he's tried to be like water in the way that he described it to me.
That's a nice screen on Kyle Lowry, and then this ball is just delivered on a rope to the weak side. So even when Jokic, it looked like you defended him properly, his instinct to spin away from traffic and make a great play out of it anyway. Now, here you go. This reminds me actually a lot of when Parker and Duncan used to run pick and roll. Look how deep it is. This is below the foul line. They don't want to switch this, but when it's this deep, you don't have a choice. So as Murray comes off, you're going to get the switch. And once again, Jokic now with a smaller guy in the post. And this is what I'm talking about, having to defend them the entire time he's got the basketball, even on the weak side. It's a great read right here by Porter. He's going to set this screen. You're going to see a little flare cut here by Murray. Heat don't play this very well, but the reason is because Gabe Vincent is very concerned about Porter setting this screen and popping out, but he doesn't communicate that. Instead, now Jamal Murray floats to the open spot, and once again, the ball is delivered perfectly, exactly where it needs to at exactly the right time. Murray steps into it on balance and drains a three. So the first quarter, Jokic didn't spend much time in the post, right? Second quarter, he started taking advantage of these switches and mismatches to get down there and seeing how the Heat were going to react. And as you can see, he can pick you apart from that position on the floor better than any player in the NBA.
We both have great respect for Eric Spoelstra and this Heat team, right? And no one's going to take one game and say that this is a wrap. I'm not saying that. But Brian Windhorst was like, just fundamentally, there's some issues here that I don't know how you solve them from Miami's perspective. Do you share that
I do
sense?
feel that way, and that's kind of how I felt about this thing going into it. You know, I said to you, I believe the number I said last night was you're going to have to get to 110
right.
just to be in the game. Well, it turns out
110 would have won it.
Would have, but I also think that Denver definitely did not come out of the locker room.
One moment, it's that the job isn't finished. They need to apply every single day. And so really it was stoic for him, for the Denver Nuggets, as they look forward to 3 more wins.
That's the perfect word. I mean, look, that's who he was in the Lakers series, right? They were trying to get him to entertain, hey, you just need 1 more win. He immediately said, no, 5, right? I mean, he's had his eye on the prize all along, and now it's not 5, it's 3 as they get 1 win here. But you do have to get 3 more, and you've got to go through Miami and Eric Spoelstra. He's been down this road before. Spo, afterwards, the message about bouncing back. What did you take from that?
Yeah, really, to me, it's the quote that Eric Spoelstra said about we have ignitable guys. And to me, Scott, I just pictured a match going and lighting, because that's what you have in a Duncan Robinson. That's what you have in a Caleb Martin. That's what you have in a Max Strus, all who shot poorly tonight. But also, you know, we talked about 4 more wins, 3 more wins now for Denver. Jimmy walked up to the podium. When he did, he was who had a great game, played incredibly well against Nikola Jokic. I know that's a matchup that you were watching. It's a matchup that I was watching, and he came out on top of that tonight. But I was walking out with him as well, and I said, so what's the mentality now? Just on to the next one, on to game 2? And he said, yeah. And I said, you're going to win game 2? And he looked at me, deadpan, and he said, no, we're going to win 4 more. So that's clearly the message from the Miami Heat.
They didn't get here, as I said a moment ago to Tim, because they're going to wilt after one loss. It is interesting, though, Malika, that it does come in game 1 on the road where they've been so great so far. We'll see if it comes in game 2. Appreciate the chance to catch up. Been too long.
Scott, thank you as always for having me. Appreciate you.
Indeed. Malika Andrews with us. When we continue, you've got sort of evidence of what it is he does in the passing game.
Yeah, what he reads, how he hurts you, how you have to continue to guard everybody on the floor.
And why you called him last night the most decisive player you've ever seen.
Yeah, he doesn't waste